We're going to go ahead and take a look at Module 1. You'll just be able to click on the Module and Assignments link here and click under the Assignment and Module Review Guide. These are the two guides and documents that we're going to want to take a look at. So the Module Review Guide takes an overview of everything that's in Module 1. What is economics? What are the major questions that are being asked about it? The difference between scarcity and opportunity cost. And we get into what is the demand line, how it moves and what impacts demand, supply and what would cause supply to shift. Then we get into the intersection between supply and demand, money, the characteristics of money, and that will end our module. We also have in here a DBA, which has some basic questions that go over the information that was just presented. It asks about how do you explain the difference between money and currency, studying economics, scarcity, factors that impact supply and demand, should the government print more money, opportunity cost, the meaning of the demand curve slope, equilibrium pricing, and the characteristics of money. We're going to go ahead and discuss those factors right now. So the first question was asking about what is the difference between money and currency? Well, currency has held different forms of states over the years and generations. Many years ago, people could use beads as forms of currency. We've even seen in the history that cocoa was traded as forms of currency. We've seen in the early 1700s that animal skins were used as a form of currency. Currency is valuable if other people are willing to accept it as a form of payment. If people are not willing to accept it as a form of payment, it no longer has any value. For instance, the country of Venezuela right now is going through hyperinflation. In my desk drawer, I have stacks of hundreds of dollars of bills of Venezuelan currency. Pinned to my wall, I have hundreds of dollar bills of Venezuelan currency. I'm not concerned about someone stealing it because the currency is worthless. No one is willing to accept it for a form of payment because of the hyperinflation. The same is going on in Zimbabwe. The US also had hyperinflation during the Civil War, especially in the South. Money needs to make sure that it is exchanged for goods and services, and that people are willing to exchange their labor for that same money. There is a certain standard that people must accept by it. We must be able to exchange it for numerical values. We're not going to exchange 8 hours of work for a blue currency and then maybe 6 hours of work for an orange currency. We want to make sure that there's a certain standard behind it. You need to make sure that this currency holds its value over time and there isn't a form of this hyperinflation that occurs. We use money as a way to measure value between unrelated items. If I asked you how much do your shoes cost, you might say $30. If I asked you how much was that cup of coffee, you might say $2. We take two completely unrelated items and are able to compare them in terms of one unit, money. We also need to make sure that that money not only is stable in value and divisible, you need to make sure that it's durable. Money is not made of paper. It's actually made of cotton fibers. You know this because if money gets washed in the washing machine, it doesn't disintegrate like the receipt in your pocket. We need to make sure that we can carry it around from place to place. It is not overprinted and we do not have this hyperinflation. And lastly, like I said before, that it is accepted. The other questions in here discuss economics. Why is it important to know it? Studying economics allows us to become better decision makers. If we fully understand the opportunity costs around us, opportunity costs are what you have to give up in order to obtain what you are currently doing. Everything has opportunity costs due to the fact of something known as scarcity. Scarcity is this idea that we do not have an infinite number of things. You do not have an infinite amount of time, nor do you have an infinite amount of money. If you have $10 and you're hungry, if you spend that $10 on a pizza, it means it's $10 you can't spend at Chick-fil-A. If you spend your Saturday picking up trash around your neighborhood to help out the community, that's time that you can't spend sitting on the couch playing Xbox. There's scarcity because there's limitations in life. Everything has an opportunity cost. There's an opportunity cost of being on this call or watching this video right now. The factors that impact supply and demand are plentiful. We can show them here. Demand is really nothing more than consumers. It's you guys going out and buying things. Demand is a downward sloping line that has plots on a axis. The vertical axis here is price level, and the horizontal axis is quantity. This should seem logical to you, that as the price of items increase and go up and up and up, the quantity demanded begins to decrease and go down and down and down. If the price of, I believe this is cheeseburgers, goes from $3 all the way down to 50 cents, then you'll see the quantity demanded of cheeseburgers increase from only 50 were bought at $3, but when the price drops, you're going to see that a larger quantity is purchased of 300 here. Quantity demanded is a specific point on the demand line, but demand itself has the ability to change. People will go ahead and demand more of a product even at the same price. So if the price is $2.50, even if the price does not change and it remains $2.50, the demand has the ability to increase. A rightward shift is an increase. What would cause demand to increase? If people preferred it more, if it became more popular, such as celebrity endorsements causing people to like it more. If the price of a related good were to change, for example, a substitute. If the price of hot dogs drastically went up, then people would buy less hot dogs, and therefore they would buy more hamburgers, even though the price of hamburgers haven't changed. If you have more money, you might buy more of the same item, even though the price of the item has not changed. If there's a change in demographics and there's just more people, or if you expect the price of the hamburgers to increase drastically in the future, you might stock up and buy more of them right now. All of these are determinants of demand. If the opposites were to occur, if something became less popular, the demand would shift and decline. The supply line is an upward sloping line here, and the supply line represents suppliers or producers. It is indicating how many resources a business is willing to allocate towards the production of an item at a specific price. If the business believes that they can make more and more money selling that same item, then they're willing to allocate more resources towards the production of that item. For example, Ford Motor Company makes both cars and trucks. If cars are selling at a very low price, Ford will say, you know what, we are not willing to allocate many resources towards the production of cars. We'll use all our workers, our metal, our capital, which is our tools and equipment, to make something more profitable like trucks. If trucks are selling at a higher price up here, then Ford will go ahead and allocate more of their workers, more of their resources like metal, more of the capital, which are our tools and equipment on the assembly line, to produce trucks. Supply has the ability to shift just like demand does. Remember, a rightward shift is an increase. A leftward shift over here is a decrease because these are number lines. If supply were to increase, this is signaled from a drop in the cost of production. If things become cheaper to make, businesses will make more of it. For example, if resources were to drop in price, resources like your labor or oil or metal, if the price of other goods were to change, just like we talked about before with our substitutes, or maybe even complements. Complements are things that you use in conjunction with the item. If it became less expensive to produce the item because the government taxed you less, or the government gave you money, such as a subsidy, you could find that supply would also increase if there were advances in technology or education of those workers. If businesses believe that the price of the item were going to change relatively soon, they might ramp up production now to sell it at that higher price, or delay if they believe the price would change and drop. If there's a greater number of firms or manufacturing facilities, then supply would also be able to increase simply because you had more of them. The intersection of the downward sloping demand line and the upward sloping supply line represents our equilibrium. At the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity, it shows how much people will be able to take without there being a shortage or a surplus. If we can take a look here, please bear with me one moment. I want to show you the difference of a supply and demand graph for Coca-Cola. The downward sloping line of demand and upward sloping line of supply intersect here at point C at $3. At $3, there are 200 units that are willing to be demanded by people. And at a price of $3, the Coca-Cola Corporation is willing to allocate enough resources to produce 200 units. But what if the price was not listed at $3 and a quantity of 200? What if the price was actually set above the equilibrium at, say, $4? At a price of $4, you would actually create what is known as a surplus, because at $4, the quantity demanded is 100 units, and the quantity supplied is 400 units. When you see that supply is greater than demand, you have extra or a surplus. In this case, you have a surplus of 300. In order to eliminate this surplus, the producer or the business would need to drop the price. If you have a price that is set below the equilibrium, then you have a shortage. We said before that supply and demand have the ability to shift. If we have this equilibrium of $3 with a quantity of $200, and there is a change, maybe there is a change in supply that would cause supply to increase because there is a decrease in the cost of production. Maybe labor costs went down, or there's technology that increased factory production, or business taxes dropped. Any of these things would cause supply to increase. If there's more of something and something becomes less rare, it should then become cheaper to get it. So prices drop. As supply increases, you're going to see that this is a signal to these consumers, the demanders here. As the prices drop, it is now going to be better for them to purchase more. They're willing to demand a higher quantity at that lower price. We could also see that if supply remained constant, but demand were to increase, there would be changes as well. Remember, demand can be influenced by things like your income, popularity, number of buyers, or the price of a substitute. If the price of the substitute, like Pepsi, were to go up, if the price of Pepsi were to increase, then the number of units of Pepsi being purchased would drop. And therefore, more people would simply demand the original Coca-Cola. And as demand for that Coca-Cola increases, you will see that businesses would simply raise their prices as the popularity of that item goes up. Because prices are higher and businesses are able to sell at a higher price, businesses are now willing to allocate more resources towards the production of that item. When demand goes up, prices go up, and the quantity produced increases. When supply increases, prices drop, and the quantity produced increases as well. I believe that has gone over all the major topics except for this one right here. Should the government print more currency to help the poor? Well, if the government were to print more currency, like they've done in Venezuela or they have done in Zimbabwe, that does not mean that you're creating more goods and services. The scarcity still exists. Simply by printing more of something, like money, does not mean that we create more food, more housing, more shelter that the poor need. By printing more money, it simply does that. There's more money out there. And as more money is printed, each dollar is worth less. Each dollar can buy fewer and fewer items. By printing more money, you simply create inflation. It does not solve the problem of your scarcity. We do not have unlimited amounts of resources to make enough food and shelter for those who need it right now. I hope this helps. This is a brief introduction here to Module 1.